Welcome back to another episode of Just Another Autism Podcast. I'm Eileen Lamb, and today I am so pleased to be joined by Jackie. Jackie is the founder of SNAC, and SNAC is a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to enriching the lives of teens and children and also young adults with autism through inclusive programs and activities. But Jackie also has a lot of other plans, and she's excited to tell you more about them in just a minute. Jackie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Eileen. I'm really excited to meet you in person, virtually, and to have this opportunity to chat about our kids and life on the spectrum.
Of course, and it's a big honor for me to have you on, and I'm so excited. So we are going to jump right into the questions now. Why don't you start by telling us about your connection to autism through your son, like when you found out he had autism, and quickly what life has been like since then.
Sure. So I guess we're at the top of the wave. Joe's going to be 30, hard to believe, in April. So when he was about 18 months old, he started to have seizures, which, with babies present so much differently. So I really didn't know what was going on. He was my first child, and I really didn't know what was happening. So again, he's almost 30, so this is a long time ago. So autism wasn't really on the docket. The first issue we were dealing with was this seizure disorder that came out of nowhere. To us, and we spent such a long time trying to figure out what it wasn't. Testing of all different kinds of horrible things, and the internet was kind of new too, so that was a whole other bag of tricks that I wish I hadn't looked into, because there's such very scary things out there. So that was my entree into this world. And when Joe got to be about 3, the seizures never stopped. He had a really intractable, of unknown origin seizure disorder. I mean, come to pass, we figured out it had something to do with him being on the spectrum, but at the time we didn't know. When we got him enrolled in early intervention, that was really the first time anybody mentioned autism, and perhaps ABA, applied behavior analysis, being that was new as well, that might be a good mode of trying to teach him, because he was super hyperactive, all over the place, wasn't able to talk. We were struggling with just about everything. Toilet training, he put everything in his mouth. It's funny, I don't think about that time so much anymore. I sometimes wonder how we got through it. He was really all over the place. It's a wonder that between having seizures and putting everything in his mouth and running away, it's a wonder that he's okay. It was really a very, very challenging time. So that was my boom entree into the world.
And is that what inspired you to start SNAC, your nonprofit organization?
It's funny. Joe, because of the seizure disorder, we spent a tremendous amount of time in the hospital, doing those overnight EEGs, which, I don't know how many people have experience with that. It's about, 32 leads attached to your head with crazy glue with a hyperactive kid. Was not the most fun I've ever had, spending time with somebody for 24 hours. So we would spend a lot of time in the hospital just trying to keep him, plugged in, so we wouldn't lose all of the data that we were trying to capture. So I would say to him all the time, there's going to come a time, Joe, that you're not going to be in the hospital all the time, and you're going to have friends, and you're going to be doing other things, and this is going to go away. And, what did I know? I was trying to encourage him. So in my mind there, volunteers would come into the hospital to help, spend the time, pass the time. And, there'd be musicians, there'd be all these wonderful people that would come in. And that's really what planted the seed for me of someday having something to give back, to help. But what really inspired me was I have another son who's 4 years younger than Joe. And when he got to be about school age, 4 or 5, he started getting invited to all these different things. And it dawned on me, Joseph had never gone to anything other than therapy. So I thought, what kind of a life is this for a child? I mean, Yeah, I understand he has issues and he has challenges, but he is still a child. So your whole life can't be going to occupational therapy and speech therapy. So that's really what gave me the impetus to start something. I have two boys. I mean, I live in Manhattan, which is hard enough with boys. There's nowhere to go. So Andrew's going to all these fun things. And I would say to like his soccer teacher, you think Joey could get it, joining the class? They were like, what is he? What is that? I was like, he just doesn't talk. He's a. Little bit hyperactive, So a lot of people were great and they helped me to develop like a special class for Joe. And then it evolved from that. I wanted a place where my two boys could go to the same place without having to drag them all over the place because Joey was different. So what, you know? So that's what really got me started.
And you know what you're talking about? I think about, having to split. You can't do anything with both of your sons together. I mean, and that's a struggle that a lot of families who have children on, well, one child on a spectrum and one neurotypical, like, struggle with, or one with profound autism and one with level one autism, because even then, like, the struggles are so different and they're gonna have much different needs. I mean, that's something I see with my two sons too. Charlie has profound autism and Jude has level one autism, and he plays soccer with neurotypical kids. He's thriving, doing great. And Charlie can't even do the special needs soccer classes or things like that. He needs like a one-on-one, which most places don't. And yeah, I think it's really difficult for parents. So I
That's
know
exactly
that
the point, Eileen.
Upsnack.
I would take Joe to volunteer programs and, well intentioned, but not for when somebody has profound needs. There really didn't, the intervention they were able to provide, they kept him safe, but he wasn't really making any progress. And I thought to myself that this is not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in something that where he'll actually gain some skills. And I can't be alone. There's got to be other families like me. I know he's in school with other kids. So that's really what then I worked with, he was getting all kinds of therapy. Lots of different people were so very, very kind and helpful in giving me the format for how we started Snack. We really started it like a 2-hour play date, for lack of a better term. It was 4 30-minute segments, knowing Joey's attention span, knowing that 2 hours was probably going to be more than enough, but 30 minutes in each type of discipline, whether it be movement, music, art, and then an actual snack is a part of it. And that gave us the basic format, the foundation of where we've now evolved into so many years later. But we certainly were not alone. There were many families like ours, and we've always had an open door policy with siblings. Siblings can always come, always at no charge, and we love to have them, and they're a great part of the program, and they always have been. And so many of them have grown up. I'm old. I'm doing this 22 years. They come back and they help and they work for us now, and they're definitely the best staff. No two ways about that.
Oh, that's amazing. Um, is that why Snack grew from 6 individual to over 250? Like, what has been the key to Snack's success over the
Well,
years?
listen, I wish the numbers weren't so high and the prevalence wasn't so great of autism. And, but that's really why we've grown. The demand is just ridiculous. There's just so many kids that need our services. And we have become, our niche is, listen, we're open to everybody of all abilities. And generally what happens though, folks self-segregate, the guys who are able to talk and to do different things don't necessarily want to be with Joey. It hurts my heart, but it's the way it is. There's nothing you can do about that. As long as everybody has the choice to do what they want to do and to participate in things, there's nothing I can do about that. And that's the way Snack is. If you want to take a class, you come join us just like everything else. There's no intake, which I think people appreciate. Because if I was still waiting for Joey's intake to be done when he was 8, about finding him a dyad or a triad that he fit in, we'd still be waiting, truthfully. So we work on your schedule. If you want to come on a Tuesday afternoon and we have an opening, well, then that's when you come to Snack. So I think we've grown because we're a good business. We value people. It's not free. Parents have to pay to participate. And although some of the classes are reimbursable and we have certainly a lot of financial aid and help everybody, it's well run, and that's what people want. They want to know they can drop their kids off. They're safe. There's an opportunity for there to be an inclusive environment. Their typical kids can participate. And again, the need is great. And we've evolved, I started, like we said, with a 2-hour after school type thing. But here in New York, I don't know everywhere else, the school days have grown longer for kids on the spectrum, especially if it's a special school. So the schools don't end until 5 o'clock. So listen, I don't need to provide something that's not needed. We need to provide where you need us. So we're open school holidays. We're open in the summer. But after school is not the same demand. For swimming, it is, but not for like the actual play date programming. The kids have more to do in these 22 years, which is great. I'm happy for that. So I think that's another reason we've grown is we've adapted to what people need. And we're constantly changing. But now we're running 7 days a week. We run over 60 hours of programming a week. And when I first started, Joe was 8. So our age range was 8 to 12. I didn't want to get in over my head with babies or with teenagers. So, I wanted to be smart, but that didn't take long that the younger parents pushed. So we go down to 3. We're a great first step when you're transitioning out of early intervention and going into center-based to come between that age of 3 and 5, to have some place to go and to separate that can handle you and isn't afraid of you being in a diaper. So that's been a good fit for us to help families. And then the older kids, as Joe got older, so did we. So we first went to 18, always with the intention that when the abyss and the cliff came, that we would be running programming for people over 21. So I think that's another reason we've grown. People know we're going to be there as the kids age.
That's fantastic. And I feel like it's even harder to find care for adults than for younger babies, though I understand what you mean by, before 3 and after a certain age, but that's something I worry about with Charlie, as he gets older.
Yes, well, it's a reality, Eileen. I'm sorry to say, it's one thing when the kids are small and we can pick them up and, catch
Right.
them. As they get bigger and they get stronger than us, and it happens. And puberty is a bear. It really is. So we the best we can do is to be prepared for it. And it's coming. And that's what we've tried to do. We started 14 talking to our parents about, what are you thinking about? What are you going to do? Because transition is a word that I think has been abused. It means taking your time and planning, not waiting until it's upon you and the decisions are made for you. So these are issues that come up all the time, and it's been very, very challenging in our community, especially at the profound end, because behavioral issues arise, and they're very, very difficult for us to deal with at home, for us to deal with in public, for us to deal with at snack, for the schools to handle. So, and that's something that's so missing in our community, where there's no template for this. At, what age do you do this? What about medication? What about this? None of us want to medicate our kids, certainly. But, you reach a point where it's safety related and,
Mhm.
it has to be a consideration, I think. As a parent, my word travels much, much greater because I live it. So there's things I share, always respecting Joey's privacy and his dignity as best I can. But it's one thing to talk to another parent, as you know, as opposed to talking to people who don't live it.
And what type of activities I mean, like for someone who doesn't know anything about snack, like can you help us like picture what type of activities you're doing with the
Sure.
kiddos there?
Sure. I mean, my intention initially and my inspiration was my son, Andrew. What's he doing? What do typical kids do? What do kids do? Right. So that's how it started. So swimming, sports, and plus our guys on the spectrum, they have an affinity to certain things. Swimming is certainly, a definite activity that our guys need to participate in. Number one, for safety reasons, but also it's such a great, occupational therapy assault on their senses. It's just the guys are always the best when they're in the water. So swimming is definitely something we added as soon as we possibly could. Not that easy to get a pool and we don't have our own, but we've been blessed with the facilities we've been able to rent. Um, Sports, the numbers. We have a lot of boys. Not that girls don't participate in sports, but sports, I find for, dads especially, it's a lot easier to say, I'm taking my son to soccer class than saying I'm taking him to, physical therapy. It's like a thing you do. It's things people do. So we have a lot of sports, yoga, art, anything you can think of that anybody would want to participate in, that our guys would be successful at for their needs. We just staff it appropriately. We train the staff appropriately, and we have a small class size. Anybody can do six. I mean, I need a small class size for exercise. I can't keep up. We all should have that opportunity. So that's really, I think, another reason why SNAC has grown. We're designed and staffed appropriately so that everybody can succeed. And I think that's what makes us tick. If you have a one-to-one, absolutely. If that's what you need, and that's primarily the way we work. And we welcome your one-to-one. We can help you get one if you need one. I think that's another thing people struggle with. I know I did, sending Joe to classes and I knowing how he was and needing help with the bathroom. And I was like, I didn't really want to leave him with somebody I don't know. He doesn't talk. He can't tell me anything. So all those things that I have, I put in the development of this to address that. And a lot of people feel the same way, I've come to find.
Yeah, I can relate as a mom living through similar struggles, and I think many of our listeners will too. What what other things do you think people don't realize about profound autism? I feel like there's so much awareness coming from people who can advocate for themselves, like self-advocates, but they don't have the struggles that someone with profound autism has. And you just touched on puberty, which I think is a subject we don't talk about enough, but what else?
There's so many things we don't talk about enough, for a lot of reasons. I had an opportunity to go to DC to lobby with some groups at the National Council on Severe Autism, truthfully, and we were trying to explain to the people, that the powers that be, what is profound autism. And one of the first things we said is, it has been impossible for me to travel to tell you our story. Joe can't speak for himself. The self advocates can, and more power to them, but they can't tell our story. And we're all trying to keep our kids alive, which is really hard to do. So now that I'm older, and I'm pretty much at the top of the wave with Joe being 30, it's incumbent upon me, I feel, and my colleagues and my peer moms to tell people the story of what our guys are like, that how challenging it has been. I've survived it. Joe's survived it. We've lived through it. There's still a lot of challenges ahead, but that behavioral piece is really, you see the videos that I see, but the people in Washington had never seen that. They think everybody is, and listen, none of us want to put our kids in that position. I'm really not a big fan of showing Joe at his worst. He can't tell me how he feels about it. His brother really is his advocate in that. We make a decision as a family about what we share. But video wise, we're very respectful of that. But what is it? Well, when I say profound autism, that means something to you and me. But for people who don't know what it is, what does that mean? So my husband always says, well, Joe doesn't read or write, as far as we know. We know he doesn't write, but we don't think he reads. He loves to be read too, but if I hand him something, sometimes it's upside down. I can't tell. He could probably read upside down. I think sometimes he operates on a different plane. There are behavioral issues. There are, moments where he has outbursts. Sometimes there's no precursor for it. We don't know what caused it. We have had terrible situations in public. The first times that happens, the first time your child has a meltdown and they're bigger than you, it was the worst day of our lives. There was a time that I had to call the police. We were in a car and we had an episode, and I had my other son with me. It was the first time. The first time any of these things happen, it's the worst time. Then you become prepared and your world gets smaller and smaller. The outbursts, I don't know, Joe can be self-injurious. He can bite himself. He can hurt others. Certainly not with intention. It's what happens. Thankfully, he's been on a cocktail of medications that has brought most of that under control. And that has given all of us, most importantly, him, such a bigger world and such more opportunity to participate in things outside of the house. But without medication, I don't know that we would be able to do that. But as a result, he's gained a tremendous amount of weight, which we all know happens. We just started him on Ozempic. I mean, is that something you wanted to do? No, but we're seeing some great results, not just um, from his, behavior in terms of eating. It's also having a great effect on him in terms of intrusive thoughts. He's so much more related. So I think this is all anecdotal at this point, but I think there's going to be some promise there. So profound autism, that's what it is. I can't die. None of us can. What's going to happen? Who's going to take care of him? I think this is something, I hope that people who don't understand what it is have a better sense of it from what I've described. Usually when you tell people he can't read or write, he's still having trouble with the bathroom. These are things we don't like to talk about either, but these are things. He can't be alone for 5 minutes. If he's alone for 5 minutes, there'll be all kinds of trouble.
Yep.
Arm's length supervision is what's required, and he's going to need 24/7 care for the rest of his life.
Yep. That's my life too. I get that. And unless you live it, I don't think you will understand just how exhausting and scary it is for parents and caregivers because it's relentless. I mean, it's not something that you really understand until you live it. Like even us talking about it, it's just
Nope.
it doesn't do it justice.
Relentless is, one of the words I think that many of us use because it's just an ongoing, listen, I'm at the point now with Joe, he's aged out for almost 9 years. And at 21, the teen years were terrible. 21, his whole life changed. The bus stops, everything's different. He doesn't go to school anymore. We have a whole new routine. There's absolutely nothing here in New York that could meet his needs. Had we not had snack programming available to him and self-direction, which is the Medicaid portion of the waiver that we're using to manage his needs, I don't know what would be happening with him, truthfully. There's no residential opportunities that would accept him. There are a couple of great ones, but they're all filled, of course. So, and that's not really, when I talk about transition, I often say, we don't really get that opportunity to transition our guys to adulthood. It's like they're with us and then we're dead and then they go somewhere else. Like that's not the plan. That's not what I'm going to do. So what we've started is we've rented a couple of apartments, and we're trying to figure out who gets along, and from having programming during the day where these guys take some classes together, they work together. We have an arrangement with Columbia University that a few of the guys work up there in the dining hall. You see there's natural, affinities where guys like each other, that want to live together. The girls, the guys, we don't do co-ed anything in terms of sleeping overnight. But we've done some respite and we're seeing tremendous, tremendous promise. Joseph has absolutely, and I know people say this all the time, I never thought I'd be able to say it. He has so risen to the occasion. I never thought I'd be able to leave him. But the way I did it was I rented an apartment. I put him in it with staff and I was below it and I went up all night. And I did it for one night for a long time. Then we brought in somebody else to stay on occasion, a roommate type. But we rotate. It's different people trying to see. Most people aren't ready to do this, but doing it in this fashion to get the confidence that, hey, we did it for a night. We did it for 2 nights. Now Joe's up to 4 nights staying with staff. And, it's been really not easy to plan it and to do it, but doing it has been so much easier than thinking about it. If that makes any sense. I was so afraid. The unknown is so paralyzing. Jumping in and doing it has freed us. I haven't slept, Eileen, in 25 years. You know what I mean? I can't believe the difference in me for myself. People always say, what do you do for you? I say nothing. You know what I mean? They don't get it. Nothing. But now I'm actually am. My husband and I go
I'm
out for
so
dinner.
glad.
Well, it's coming for all of us. It's coming for all of us. We just have to keep the pressure on and take chances because nobody's coming to save us. Nobody. We have to do this. We have to build these things. There's lots of projects and lots of things all over the country that are happening. And we just need to meet more often. I think, the pandemic was a major setback for all of us. It set me back tremendously. I had all these apartments set up and then they were empty and I had to pay for them for 2 years with nobody in
That's
them. So
that's
that's another
tough.
reason I moved in. I got all
Well,
the bills.
how can we support you with Snack?
Oh, well, so listen, we don't take any government money for a reason. Because generally speaking, what our kids need, they're not able to meet at this point with the funding and the requirements and things that the government programs have. That's been my experience, especially for kids with profound need. So if I take money from the government, then I have to kind of listen to them, which I really don't want to do. So what we do is we fundraise for the difference that the fees don't cover. We try to make the fees reasonable, what any class that you would take would be. We try not to have a penalty that it's only 6 kids in the class, but think about it. I'm renting a pool. I have an entire pool and I don't have more than 8 kids. So it's costly and it's all 1-to-1. So fundraising is what we need help with. And we opened to help our own cause, an e-commerce site on our website. We sell coffee, we sell cosmetics, we sell t-shirts, we'll sell anything. And the kids run it. We've opened a print shop. So that would be a wonderful way for people to help us. Visit our website, like us on social media, keep our story going. I was interviewed on Good Morning America in January, and that got so much traction, just like we're talking about. I've heard from moms and dads all over the country living the same life we're living. But to be able to talk about it and to find somebody that's actually living the life that you are, you get such solace in that.
Of course.
So that's how people can help us. Help us spread the word about our kids.
Where can people find you on social media? We'll put those links in the description
Where
too.
When I started Snack, I naively started it as a for-profit. So we're not a .org, we're a .com, but we've become a not-for-profit. It's over 20 years. So it's snacknyc.com, and Snack NYC is our handle on Instagram and on Facebook. So that's where you can find us. And we try to keep everybody updated on what we're doing.
Sounds great. Well, we'll have everyone follow you. And thank you again for joining today and for everything you're doing for our community. We need more voices and more people doing things like that. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me, Eileen.